Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode the one financial document every single manager needs to master, the profit and loss statement. We're going to give you the keys to not just read it, but to actually use it to drive real, sustainable growth. Okay, let's just jump right in with the most fundamental question a manager can ask. It seems so simple, right? But the answer? Well, that's what separates the businesses that truly thrive from the ones that are just, surviving. The good news is you don't have to guess. Every business has a document that's designed to answer that exact question. We call it the profit and loss statement, or just the P&L for short. So, in just the next few minutes, we are going to hand you 3 incredibly powerful keys. You're going to learn how to read your business's financial report card, how to spot the number one mistake that hides what's really going on with your profit, and most importantly, you're going to master 3 levers that you can pull to directly boost that bottom line. So, let's start at square one. What exactly is this report card we're talking about? The P&L, sometimes called the income statement, is basically your business's performance summary for a set period of time, like a month or a quarter. The formula is actually super straightforward. It just adds up all the money coming in as revenue and then subtracts all the money that went out as expenses. Honestly, the easiest way to picture it is to think about your own budget at home. Your revenue, that's your paycheck. Your expenses, well, that's all your bills, the rent, groceries, gas, you name it. And what's left over at the end of the month? That's your profit. The P&L does the exact same thing, but for a business. But here's where it starts to get really interesting. See, not all profit is the same. The P&L actually breaks it down into 3 different layers, and each one tells a totally different part of your company's story. That first layer, right at the top, is your gross profit. This number tells you how much money you're making from your main gig. Actually making and selling your product or service. This is before you even think about any other business costs. Then, if you go one layer deeper, you hit operating profit. This tells you if the fundamental business itself is actually profitable after you subtract all the costs of just running the operation. It's a really critical health check. And this chart illustrates that flow perfectly. You start at the top with your total revenue. Then, you subtract the direct costs of what you sold, your COGS, and that gives you your gross profit. From there, you subtract the costs of just running the business, your OPEX, and that lands you at your operating profit. So, this is the crucial part. Understanding the difference between those 2 buckets of costs we just talked about, COGS and OPEX. I'm telling you, getting this right is everything. COGS are your direct variable costs. They go up and down right along with your production. You make more stuff, you spend more on materials. Simple. OPEX, on the other hand, are your fixed, indirect costs. You gotta pay the rent and your HR person's salary whether you sell one thing or a million things. What really makes this click is this pizza shop analogy. The COGS are the ingredients, the flour, the cheese, the pepperoni. They are literally in the pizza. The OPEX is the cost of the pizzeria itself, the rent, the cashier's salary, the flyers. It's the cost of being able to sell the pizza in the first place. And that brings us to that number one error we warned you about. If you mess up and classify a variable cost, like the cheese for the pizza, as a fixed overhead cost, you end up artificially inflating your gross profit. And that is so dangerous. It tricks you into thinking you're way more profitable than you actually are, which can lead you to set your prices way too low. And believe it or not, lose money on every single pizza you sell without even knowing it. Okay, so now you can read the report card. What's next? Well, now we talk about the levers you can actually pull to change the grade. The first and most direct lever for a ton of managers is getting a grip on your COGS by mastering efficiency. I mean, it's not just us saying this. As researcher Lila Keating puts it, there's a direct, proven link here. When you focus on making your processes more efficient, using methods like Lean, which is all about hunting down and eliminating waste, you directly cut your costs. This isn't just some theory, it makes a real, tangible impact on your bottom line. So how big of an impact are we talking about? Research shows that companies that really adopt these principles see their operational costs drop by an average of 18 to 25%. I mean, think about that for a second. That is a massive boost to your gross profit, just from running a tighter ship. Now for our second lever, and well, this one's a big one. You have to defend your price. This is all about protecting that gross profit margin. We now know how to calculate the right way. Just take a look at this. Let's say you've got a product that sells for $100 and its COGS is $60. That's a nice $40 gross profit. But then you offer a small 10% discount. Your price drops to $90, but guess what? Your COGS is still 60 bucks. Your profit per unit just plummeted from $40 to $30. That is a gigantic 25% decrease in profit from what looked like a tiny little discount. So that leads to a really critical question, right? To make up for all that lost profit, how many more of these things do you have to sell? The answer is kind of staggering. You have to sell over 33% more units. Just let that sink in for a moment. You need a 33% jump in sales just to get back to where you started. This is exactly why undisciplined discounting is one of the quickest ways to absolutely destroy your profitability. And that brings us to our third and final lever, getting strategic about managing your overhead, your operating expenses. Now, listen, managing overhead isn't about taking a sledgehammer to your budget. It's about being surgical. The golden rule here is to make sure your overhead costs don't grow faster than your sales. As a manager, you should be focused on getting rid of waste and non-essential stuff, not making these blind, across-the-board cuts that could end up hurting the very parts of your business that actually create value. So, we'll leave you with this one last thought. You now have the keys. You can read your P&L, and you know the three main levers you can pull: efficiency, pricing, and overhead. So go, take a look at your last P&L report card. Which lever do you need to pull first? The answer, I promise you, is right there in the numbers.